Diego got the email and actually pumped his fist at his desk. A 5% raise, first one in 2 years. He felt richer immediately. He wasn't. There's a name for the gap between how Diego felt and what was actually true, and it's not a character flaw. Economists have been studying it for almost 100 years. It's called money illusion. The brain's tendency to judge money by the number printed on it, not what that number can actually buy. Diego's raise was 5%. Inflation that year ran close to 8%. On paper, more money. In real terms, about 3% less purchasing power than he had the year before. He didn't get richer, he got slightly poorer, and felt fantastic about it. An economist named Irving Fisher first named this back in 1928, and nearly a century of research since has only confirmed how strong the effect is. The brain has 2 ways to evaluate a dollar amount. The fast way, just look at the number, and the slow way, adjust that number for what things actually cost now. The fast way is effortless. The slow way takes real mental work. So, by default, almost everyone runs on the fast way, almost all the time, even people who know better intellectually. Here's the part most people don't expect. Study after study finds that even professional economists and finance experts fall for it too. In controlled experiments, when the numbers are dressed up just slightly differently. This isn't an intelligence problem, it's a wiring problem. Worth remembering because it matters a lot for what happens later in Diego's story, the version of him who was sure he'd never fall for something this simple twice. This isn't just about salaries either. It shows up almost everywhere money gets compared to money. Retailers lean on it constantly. A price that looks like a discount in nominal terms, even when it barely beats inflation. It shows up in housing markets, where buyers and sellers compare a price to what a house used to cost without adjusting for years of inflation in between, making price jumps look far more dramatic or far more reasonable than they actually are in real terms. There's a strange asymmetry buried in this too. Cut someone's paycheck by 3% in actual dollars, and they'll be furious. It feels like an insult, something worth fighting over. Let inflation quietly erode that same 3% of value while the number on their paycheck stays exactly the same, or even ticks up slightly, and most people barely notice. Same real loss, wildly different reaction. That's part of why layoffs happen more often than nominal pay cuts, even when a pay cut would genuinely be less painful for everyone involved. Inflation is willing to do the same dirty work quietly, in a way an actual pay cut never could. This isn't hypothetical either. It's happening in the real economy right now, not just in Diego's story. This year, inflation overtook wage growth in the US for the first time in 3 years. Prices climbing somewhere around 3.8 to 4.2%. Average pay climbing only about 3.4 to 3.6%. One economist covering the report called it a split-screen economy. Strong on the surface, quietly losing ground underneath for the people actually cashing the paychecks. That gap doesn't land evenly either. Looking at real wage growth by industry since 2020, tech, finance, and skilled trades workers have generally stayed ahead of inflation. Education, retail, food service, and social services workers have quietly lost real ground over the same stretch. In some cases, several percentage points of real purchasing power, even while their paychecks kept climbing every single year on paper. Same illusion, very different consequences, depending entirely on which industry someone happens to be in. Zoomed all the way out, prices overall are now roughly 20 to 25% higher than just a few years ago, meaning even a raise that felt generous the moment it landed may already be underwater by now, without ever once feeling like a loss. Here's the actual damage this does to one person over time, compounded. If Diego's raises keep landing just slightly below inflation year after year, his paycheck keeps climbing on paper while his real spending power quietly erodes. And because every single raise still feels like a win in the moment, there's no natural point where an alarm goes off. Money illusion doesn't just cause one bad decision. It removes the alarm that would normally catch the pattern. And here's the payoff on that open loop from earlier. 2 years later, Diego got another raise. Smaller this time, in a year when inflation had also cooled off significantly. He was almost annoyed by it. It felt like a disappointment, a nothing raise. It was actually the better real deal of the two, dollar for dollar. The version of him that knew better still had the exact same automatic reaction as before. Knowing the concept intellectually didn't turn the fast thinking off. It just meant he noticed it happening after the fact, both times. It cuts the other direction too, not just toward false comfort. Wes, on Diego's team, saw a subscription he'd had for years jump from $40 to $44 a month and canceled it immediately, annoyed, feeling nickel and dimed. He never checked what inflation had done to that same $40 over the years the price hadn't moved at all. The $44 was actually a smaller, real increase than the flat $40 he'd been quietly paying for years without a second thought. He wasn't reacting to the actual cost. He was reacting to the fact that the number had finally, visibly moved. The fix isn't do better mental math every time a number shows up. Nobody sustains that. What works is building one small habit that does the conversion automatically, the same way autopay removes the decision to pay a bill on time. Whenever a number matters, a raise, an investment return, a price increase, ask one question before reacting to it at all. Compared to what? A 5% raise compared to 0% inflation is genuinely great news. A 5% raise compared to 8% inflation is a pay cut wearing a nice outfit. The number alone never tells you which one you're looking at. Diego's version of this now. One number pinned to his notes app, updated every few months. The current inflation rate. So any raise, return, or price change gets measured against something real instead of sitting there in isolation, feeling good or bad on vibes alone. One more habit worth building alongside that. When a price or a number changes, check how long it's been since it last changed, not just what the new number is. A subscription that jumps 10% after 4 years flat is a very different story than one that jumps 10% twice in 6 months. Same percentage, completely different real pattern. The compared to what question only works if it's compared against the right stretch of time, not just the most recent number. Money illusion isn't about being bad at math. It's about being human, built to notice the number first and the meaning second, because that's faster, and most of the time, fast is fine. It's just not fine here.